that issue
After
before.
that.
Yeah, he can
Okay, we're live.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Snarky.
we're live, everyone. Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 28th. Let's stand for the pledge, and Tim, can you take the lead, please?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
moment of silence or no?
Yes, in
Stand or-
recognition of those who have perished, can we stand for a moment
Sure.
of silence? Thank you. I have. Okay. We have a pretty big agenda today. We're gonna start off with, the police department monthly reports. Chief Hagamiller?
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief.
I guess we're getting back to normal because we're here to talk about the monthly stats, so that's a good thing. And I sent out the report to everybody. Basically, we're down almost in everything, except for domestics and non-criminal incidents. So, and even the domestics weren't up that much. We're only up 5 from 2019's numbers, so it's really not that much of an increase at all. Last month, actually, the domestics were down even more. I think they were down by 20 or so. So we're in good shape. It's actually been a slow couple of months on that front. However, on the COVID front, it's been very busy over at the police department. So we've also had a slight uptick in overdoses as of late. All of the cases that we've had are being investigated by the East End Drug Task Force. So hopefully we'll have some results on that too.
Chief, some of that involved the fentanyl-laced,
Yeah, so that's what they've surmised, that the opioid's hard to get at this time, so they're using more fentanyl than opioids, so. Any questions on the report?
No, it's good to see that in almost every area it went down. And sometimes under circumstances like this, they usually skyrocket. So it's interesting to find out what the indicator, what the cause of that is.
Right.
I think people being inside, and although domestics have gone up,
Yeah, just slightly.
yeah,
Yeah,
slightly.
this is not a police report thing, but I did see something that the numbers for child abuse have been down, but they think it's possibly because they're not getting reported
Right.
because of the
No
COVID.
school access or anything like that,
Right.
so that could happen.
Just something I was thinking about.
Right. So
Okay.
just to speak about COVID a little bit, as everyone knows, we entered phase 1 yesterday. And I think just by the volume of cars on the road, everyone kind of knew that. So I think traffic's on its way back. So to talk about our beaches, everyone should know that it's resident permit only at all beaches in the town of Riverhead. If you park there without a resident beach pass or sticker, permit, whatever you want to call it, you'll be fined. So make sure you have your sticker on the car. They're being sold at Stotsky Park currently. You can also get them online through Viply, I think the app is, so.
I forwarded you an email this morning from one of the beaches, Reeves Beach, that they're concerned there was a car parked there all night last night
Right.
from Manhattan, and it was
No
not
over-
ticketed.
Right, so no parking after 10 PM unless you're a fisherman, and you have to have a special permit for that also, so.
And 4x-wheels are allowed.
4x4 we are in season currently, started May 15th, so you need a 4x4 permit, and you can only access the beach between 6 PM and 9 AM,
Not during the day.
not during the day.
And the beaches are open, but for passive use
Correct.
and practicing social
Right.
distancing, obviously, and permit.
Right,
We're
so-
honoring last year's permit until
July 1st?
July
I
1st.
thought it was
End of
June
June.
20th.
Excuse me?
I thought it was June 20th.
I think the rec site might say June 27th, but I think we're gonna try to make it,
Adjusted?
right, to July 1st, just so, it's kind of not that number 27 you have to worry about, it's really June or July that you have to worry
Right,
about, so.
yeah, makes sense.
All right. Bathrooms are all closed at all beaches until June 27th, and lifeguards will be on staff June 27th, and then 7 days a week, straight through to Labor Day, so
Okay.
we're good there. All of our 4 beaches have been posted with a message sign, which says obey the rules, and at this point, everyone on the board knows what the rules are.
The people reading the
Well-
boards at the beaches don't know what the rules are.
They
though.
should, right, so 2 things, you have to have a face covering when you go to the beach, and you have to have your permit. The other rules, and we all know, are wash your hands constantly, face coverings required if you can't social distance. So, the only time on the beach really that you would not have to have a face covering is when you go for a swim, obviously. So leave that on your blanket when you go for a swim, when you come back on, have it available in case you'll be talking to people or waiting down at the beach or whatever.
And that's when you can't social distance, so a
Right.
family of 4
Right.
can, as long as they stay within
On their
themselves,
on
on a
their
blanket,
blanket,
on
right.
chairs, they don't have to wear it, but anytime they leave from that family.
Correct.
Moving forward,
Right.
okay?
If they're gonna go down to the water's edge and watch the children swim, they should have a face covering on, if they're not going in the water.
Because we saw the pictures of those people in the pool and in that water park.
Yeah, that was really bad, really, really bad.
Chief, we mentioned at Tuesday's work session that the overnights at the beaches are a problem, and particularly Reeves. And we said we would contact you and ask for extra enforcement in the evening hours.
You're
'cause
talking about on the beach, right?
on the beach,
Right.
in the parking lot, but mostly on the beach, on cars without the permits and leaving their trash all over the
Right.
place and just creating havoc down there. So
Trash,
we
I think
really-
B&G has stepped up the collection with that, so
I
hopefully
think
that.
it's the ATVs that we really need out there, and, I mean,
That has started already, so ATVs were out last weekend.
I know,
Where we're
but,
stationing them at the beaches, so they have immediate access to the beaches, and it will continue straight through the summer.
yeah, I saw them with the, trailer, they were
Trailer.
carrying the ATV to the beach, so, how many do we have?
We have 2 ATVs,
Okay, so
and
those,
we have the Gator, or whatever they call that other thing.
so those are on the beach, starting from when they can go on the beach at
we-
6 o'clock at
basically-
night until?
Basically weekends or holidays, they're out there
Because
patrolling.
if there's a problem this morning.
Right,
with
if there's a
people on the
problem,
beach,
they're
then-
available to them to get out and take care of it.
Yeah.
I think we had a problem last night on Hulse Landing that hopefully was taken care of.
Yeah, I just think that it's important to just make a pass through there on the weeknights as well. You know, maybe not be on there all the time.
Right.
As we are on the weekends, but, you know, every night at 10 o'clock, maybe, you know, after the parking lot's closed, then we should have an ATV just driving on the beach and seeing what's going on out there.
Or 4-wheel drive.
At least in good weather, yeah.
Right.
I mean, if
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
Now,
nasty weather
our-
day, it's not
our-
really an issue, but.
Our North Shore beaches aren't really that negotiable as far as driving along them, especially at a high tide. At high tide, a lot of the areas, the water goes right up to the bluff or right up to a bulkhead, so.
Okay.
At that point in time, you shouldn't even be on the beach, because basically when you're driving on the beach, you're supposed to be below the mean high water mark.
Right, but they're not doing that.
They're not doing that, and it's a problem because most of our beaches are bluffs, so the people up top really don't pay attention to the trucks sitting on their private property down the bottom.
Oh, they're paying attention, because I heard it.
Some are, yeah, no,
do.
some are.
Some definitely
Some
do.
are definitely out in Wading River to the
Yeah.
east, so they're definitely
yeah.
paying attention, so.
So I think it's, because all they're doing is they're calling the police department, and we have to send somebody down there with the
Have to send-
ATV anyway. So
right.
if we're just going through and passing through, then we're not gonna have any conflicts with residents and people that are not staying
Sure.
below the high water mark.
Right, for sure.
Chief, the Explorers we have, are they all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive?
They're all-wheel drive, but I don't think I would put them down
Oh,
on
no,
on
no,
the beach, yeah.
no.
Good.
Because I've seen other people try to negotiate that, and
No, they're
Didn't
looking for
work,
tows
so.
all the time.
one woman was like, but I have a Jeep, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yep.
not good. Just to end up with our positive cases, we're just below 700 currently. The county map is down, so we haven't been getting updated numbers. You saw in the situation report, the numbers have not been updated. So I assume they're right about 700, either plus or minus. I don't really try to focus on that number anymore because it just keeps going up. So hopefully now it's going up slowly, but as I say, it still keeps growing. So we don't really look at that too much. I look more at the hospital numbers, the supervisor and myself, and we're very happy to report that as of yesterday, there was only 11 cases in the hospital that were COVID. And that's way, way down from April, the middle of April, we were up at 88 cases in the hospital. So that's a big improvement. So it's working, washing your hands, wearing a mask, and social distancing is working. So let's keep it up.
Okay, great.
And I don't see anything on the town website as far as,
Did you look at
and the 2019 passes are good through.
Did you
so.
look at the recreation site? I think you had
I'm
it
on
up.
the recreation page and I'm on beaches.
He must have adjusted it because I saw it there a few days ago.
Right, and we asked them
Yeah,
to adjust it.
Yeah,
so.
we did. We asked him to adjust it. Maybe it has to be updated.
Well, if you saw it on here, then it's coming.
I'll check on that again later.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
so, thank you. Done. All right, just a briefing on, where we are concerning COVID. Okay, these are the discussion items today. You have an agenda. Very critical and very important is for everyone, all businesses in Riverhead and throughout, actually, New York State, is a website called New York Forward. It's an actual book giving you all the guidance you want. The state has decided to take this forum. They're not taking calls, but they're answering almost immediately emails and sending out information. You don't need a website. All you have to type in is New York Forward, and you'll be instantly, you'll have the URL, the web link that you need to access. There are certain programs out there that's very important, and I'm going to rehash a little bit of what we spoke about on Tuesday in case someone were not in attendance on Tuesday, they can get some of the information today. If you go on to New York Forward, you can go on to the second page. You can file for a New York business loan. It's for small businesses. Businesses up to 20 people are eligible to apply. If you apply to previous loans, you're not eligible to apply, such as the CARES Act, the PPP program. You go onto the New York website, you'll be prompted to this page, and you can immediately file your loan. We're told that it's taking about 3 weeks to process the loan. The second part of this page indicates the phase opening. We'll talk a little bit about it. We are in phase 1. The governor opened phase 1 on yesterday, May 27th. Each phase, there were a total of 4 phases. Each phase will be open within 2 weeks. So we're in phase 1. In 2 weeks, it's expected to go to phase 2. However, that is not written in stone. The governor and the county executive may, if numbers keep on climbing down, move further into the phases and not maintain that 2-week distance. For businesses to open, you need to, there's a template online in the New York Forward. You need to have a New York Forward safety plan. There's a template. It's very easy to follow. It'll ask you how many employees, what you're doing, how much, and as soon as you prepare you fill in the template, you press send, and the state gets it. Okay, you need to prepare this. I understand people believe that we need to, that we can just open and forget about what the governor says in the state. Unfortunately, and to my frustration, the governor has closed our certain stores, some of our industries, so has our county executive, and they are the guiding body. If you have a restaurant, Department of Health has also closed them. We need to follow the protocols of the county and the state. On this page, and this is just to give an overview, there's a business affirmation form. After you submit your plan, your safety plan, you need to prepare a business affirmation plan. Also submit it immediately. The form is on the New York Forward website, and you submit that business is just affirming that you followed all the safety protocols. It's important that we follow these safety protocols. We do not want to research. Research is a lot more catastrophic than the first search, if we research. Since 1700, we've had 8 pandemics here in the United States, and 7 of them have researched. The phases, again, on New York Forward, you will be able to access the book. We're in phase 1. It consists of construction, agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting, curbside retail, or in-store pickup. And recently, the wineries were added to it. However, there is no tasting rooms. Tasting rooms cannot be utilized. Although you can have curbside pickup at the wineries, you cannot have go into tasting rooms just yet. That's going to fall under the restaurant, which is phase 3. Manufacturing, wholesale, that is phase 1. This is where we are. Guidance on each of these industries, again, back to New York Forward, each industry is described. Phase 2 is professional services, retail, administrative support, real estate, rental, and leasing. Phase 3, which is the one that everyone's waiting for, is very anxious to reach, is restaurants and food services, and we'll have some lively conversations later on today on some programs and some efforts that are being put forward. If you have any business-related questions, there is a link. You go back to New York Forward, you locate where to ask questions, and locate the link, and I'm told that they respond within 24 hours. We'll move on to the other outdoor premise dining later on. However, we're going to take a break from this component and start. We have 3 projects that are going to be put before us, and we want to address them. I understand that they're online. They called in already. They're in the waiting room.
Yes.
Okay, so Jeff.
So we're doing them.
Oh, wait, I'm
Barry
sorry.
Law.
You want to do the Barry Law? Okay, sorry.
If he's there, do you have Barry?
Okay, so if we
Um,
have Barry, then we'll move on to the projects. Thank you.
I'm just going to talk a minute about UDA and the work that they're doing, and then I'm going to pitch it over to Barry. Good morning, Barry. Can you hear us?
He's got to unmute.
Okay. So the pattern book, Urban Design Associates have had they've been working in the interim, and they have had the survey ready to roll, but we did not think it was appropriate to roll it out right in the middle of everything. We were concerned about participation. It just didn't seem like something that should happen at that time. So we are going to be having the second survey go live, I think, this week. Barry will talk about it, to get more community feedback on our downtown area, and that will be up until June 15th at 5 o'clock. I actually think this is a great time for us to get feedback from the community on our downtown area, since we're just moving towards reopening and talking about a lot of new ideas, and I think it's a great time for the community to weigh in on all of it. So I think that it actually worked out well. The last time we had 1,100 people who weighed in on the survey, which UDA said was really phenomenal, and I hope that we can equal that amount. Lastly, I want to mention that Urban Design Associates has given us all of the documents, the feedback from the first survey, the PowerPoints, and all that information is on the town website right underneath quick links, if the community would like to look over the results of the last survey. And also I want to say that it's really been a pleasure working with Urban Design Associates, and Barry actually stepped up and has done some extra work above and beyond to help us with some work towards some of our grants. So with that, I'm going to pitch it over to you, Barry.
Oh, terrific. Well, thank you,
Can't really hear it.
Councilmember Ken, good morning Supervisor Aguiar and the other town council members. Wish that we could be there in person, but to give you an update today, but we'll do it remotely. So the last time we did see you in person was in February, just before New York shut down. And today I'm just going to give you an update on where we are with the pattern book. I'll reiterate a few of the things that Councilmember Kent said, but I'm going to add a little bit more detail. So the community input and presentations to date are now available on the town's website. And just to be specific, they're labeled as Downtown Revitalization Pattern Book, and they're a top-level page under the divisions and departments right now, so they're easy to find. And we appreciate Chip's help in getting those posted.
Yeah, Barry,
there are-
we have them under quick links, but we're gonna be moving them from divisions, cause they're not actually a department, but we
I know
will
they
be
aren't.
keeping them
We
under
felt
quick
very
links.
privileged, though.
Yes.
We felt very privileged to be put at the department's level. But all the presentations that we've made are there, summary of community input and the survey results from the first survey. So we're excited about that. Downtown survey number 2, as Councilmember Kent said, was completed in early March and was ready to go. Given the focus, the necessary focus on the pandemic, we made a group decision to post it for public response around Memorial Day. So we're there, and the town is going to be sending out a link this week, so residents should be on the lookout for that. And we would like to beat the response for the first survey, which I believe we got over 1,200 responses to, which was terrific. Importantly, the schedule moving forward. So survey responses are due Monday, June 15th. That'll put it out for a couple of weeks, and that was the same amount of time the last survey was on the street, actually a few days more. UDA is going to compile and share the results of that survey. Again, it'll be on the town's website. That'll be posted by Chip. We're going to create an executive summary video with illustrations to post on the town's website for public comment, and this is of the draft pattern book. And then we're going to consider the comments that we receive, issue a final document, and present to council for your consideration, hopefully also in July. So it's important to note, we've, in the presentations that we videotaped previously, the public meetings, it was difficult to see the graphics. And this approach in the time of social distancing has the advantage of us being able to do a voiceover over the graphics so they're clear, so residents and council can see exactly what we're talking about, and we can also insert video of us speaking about it. So that is that's the plan. And again, the issuing of the final document we expect to be sometime in July, and we will be presenting to council for your consideration, hopefully also in July. Now, this is all predicated on response to comments. We could be done sooner, but we want to make sure that we give the public time to respond to the second survey. We integrate the findings from the second survey into the pattern book. So that's what's really driving the schedule, but we expect to be done in July. That's our hope. So let me stop for a minute there. I have a couple of other related things that we'd like to highlight, things that we know are going on and we just want to amplify as positive. But do you have any questions about the schedule?
Barry, I don't have, I understand, if I'm not mistaken, Captain brought to your attention the fact that we had the US ACE here. Is that gonna be incorporated into your project?
The Army Corps of Engineers, you were gonna talk.
Oh, yes,
you were
yes,
gonna
yes.
talk about that.
Exactly.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Thanks for reminding him. And
Yes,
Barry, I just
exactly.
wanted to mention to everyone that, although you sort of alluded to it, we really were planning to have a third public forum, and those community forums went very well. Riverhead turned out in big numbers and it was impressive, but we can't do that obviously because of, can't gather that many people, so that's why we sort of came up with another plan.
Right. Any other questions? And I'll get to the Army. Army Corps was next on my list.
Okay.
Okay, just a few things to highlight. And since it's been a while, I'll remind you of the 4 primary sections of the pattern book. We have an introduction that goes through the community engagement process and gives a brief history of downtown and reminds folks of the study area boundary and how to use the pattern book. But the 3 main sections are the first on policy issues, and it will include touching on Peconic River flooding, and now I'm going to talk in just a minute about the Army Corps and that visit. Parking, proposed mix of land uses, transportation, and things like that. It's policy issues. Then the next section is guidelines for public areas. So this is guidelines for areas that are not privately owned, and it deals with pedestrian circulation, pedestrian-friendly streets, signage, parks and open space, public safety, and things of that nature. There's others. And then the third and final section is the guidelines for private development. So there's lot development standards. This was required in our contract, site-specific setbacks, architectural rule of thumbs, and touching on architectural styles, which we expect to elaborate on more based on the results of the current survey. And then there's an appendices that includes all of the summaries and of the community meetings and surveys that we've gathered, and other references to the historic preservation design guidelines and things that are important and related to the pattern book. Building on that, we were very encouraged by the town's recent video conference with the Army Corps of Engineers about downtown flooding issues. We've been talking about this since last fall. We did some graphics that we had shared with the town and with residents, and most residents identified this as a priority through the process to be addressed. And the new development that's being planned and dollars invested in redevelopment, we recommend that they should be for the long term, just in a word, future-proofed. So that in anticipation of sea level rise, so you're not, so your investments are essentially forever. And that's the way that the town is headed, and we're very encouraged by that. You have time to get out in front of this issue now, and now is the right time to be addressing it, because you want to get in line for funding at the front of the line. We have been working with Don Thomas on grant applications, which has been a wonderful opportunity in the time of a pandemic to keep looking for money. And she's been terrific in doing that, and we really enjoyed that process. And I'd also, and it's been on a variety of grant applications, but we're just very encouraged about some of the opportunities related to potential grants. We've been asked by a number of towns that we work with, what's the future of Main Streets post-pandemic? And I think that's a fair question, and we wanted to address that because there's, I think, kind of a potential reaction that maybe Main Streets aren't relevant anymore, or what about the damage that was done to small businesses by the pandemic? Experiential retail and local restaurants are still the future. We strongly believe they were before the pandemic, and there were trends in retailing and successful commercial development that were headed that way, but we don't expect that to change. But that word experiential, and we use that a lot of times during the pattern book process, make sure that your downtown in every way is a good experience, starting with safety and going right down to the pedestrian level, walking down the street. Every part of the experience is really important, because unique downtowns like Riverhead have a market niche and a competitive advantage. And it's really only a matter of how well you leverage that opportunity as to how successful your downtown is. If we were working on a mall with you, if you were trying to re-tenant your mall, we would be a little more pessimistic right now. But we feel that downtowns, and the fact that they're focused on experiential retail and they have a very diverse mix of uses, give them a competitive advantage, and we believe that they'll bounce back and be healthy in the long term. And that's my update.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, we currently have 5 projects that are in the planning department right now under review in the renderings. We have 331 Main Street, which is the old subway site. We have the Long Island Science Center. We have the Met West Marine Building where we have renderings in. We have Suffolk Theater that we have renderings in, and we have the art site next to Haiku Restaurant. So we have 5 projects right now in the hopper in planning. Have you looked at those renderings and figured out how those designs are gonna fit in with the pattern book that you're creating?
I think that's a great question. It's hard to see with a mask, but I believe that was Councilmember Giglio.
Yes, it was.
But he, I'm still getting used to these public meetings
I'll
with
raise my hand next time.
face coverings. The only, we have been verbally explained the West Marine site. The other ones we have seen renderings for, and I think West Marine, I believe that one just came in. But we are aware of those proposals, and, you know, quite honestly, I should just say, from a legal perspective, all of those projects can proceed under the current regulations until the pattern book is accepted by council, and then there would actually have to be the second part of that, which is a form-based code that goes with it to change your regulations. So the timing of those projects is important, because right now you have to judge them under the current regulations. But that said, I would say largely what we've seen is consistent with where the pattern book is headed, pending council's review and acceptance of it. So it's still, I guess, fluid, I would say, in the sense that it is not complete, and we're still asking for public input. But I think that most of the development proposals that we've seen that are in his applications are consistent with the pattern book.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Barry, one last question. Actually, I'll make a statement. Will you advise as to the findings of USA's, what the results? I might as well bring it out forward. It was a pretty comprehensive review. Our engineer provided a historical perspective of the flooding at the Peconic Riverfront, and at the conclusion of the discovery meeting, they asked us to move forward, which is a huge status to be in. There are times that they tell you, we're gonna reconvene, we're gonna try to figure this out, and maybe you might not hear from them. They also offered to help us prepare an application for funding. It's very positive, and it looks like we're gonna eventually get to the bottom of the funding. And whatever engineering modifications have to be made, depending on what they are, I'm told as of today that there is funding for that also. So it's exciting that we're gonna address that. I also think that bringing this effort forward, and I think Catherine had agreed, bringing this effort forward with the USA's also provides us with leverage on the funding.
Agreed, and that's an important point. So we are going to amplify the importance of that. And the pattern book, actually, from a grant standpoint, has other things, like your work on, other efforts in downtown, where the pattern book helps you potentially leverage grant funding. So that's an important one on the flooding, because we need to get a comprehensive study done by engineers that can really accurately predict what the long-term future is. And then we just need to make sure that development initiatives, as they go, when you're spending money, take that into consideration. We don't, and we think there are solutions. So by getting out in front of it now and applying for funding and making this a priority, we are 100% behind that, as we've been, as you know, we've been since the beginning, and we will reiterate that in the policy section of the pattern book as something that's critical to the long-term vibrancy and revitalization of downtown. We can't just be building assuming that we're gonna rebuild later when buildings are impacted by floods.
In recent, grant applications, the CDA director has included, the visit, which hopefully promotes us when it gets to the state or the federal level, and they review and say, why are we gonna give Riverhead $10 million when it's flood and no one's ever done anything about it? However, when you get an application and they said, hey, we moved to the next level, and they're applying for funding, you know, you're more likely to approve that type of, grant.
Well, right now, in the order of the pattern book, it's the first item in the policy section of the pattern book that you come to. That's how important an issue we think it is. And we'll work with your staff and make sure that we have language that the five of you feel comfortable related to that.
Yes, I
Thank
have
you.
a question. So, the floodplain elevations as they are today are laid out by the New York State DEC in whether it's an X zone or a 10 zone, a 6, 8. So, right now, the code says for the state that you have to build 2 feet above the floodplain elevation. I know
Right.
that, you know, Summerlin Square was built 3 feet above the floodplain elevation in anticipation of this. So one of the questions that I had when the supervisor had emailed us and said, do we have any questions for the Army Corps of Engineer? One of the questions that I had was, what can we do today to prepare for 25 years from now? Because it is gonna take a long time to change these flood zone elevations
Right.
with the New York State DEC. So if we can adopt something locally that says that you have to build 3 feet above the floodplain elevation as stated by New York State now, I think that's something that we can do on a local level, because the minimum is 2 feet above floodplain elevation with the state, but if you can lead us in a direction to where we're protecting the property owners and we may have to address some height issues if we ask them to set the first floor elevation up a little bit higher.
Yep. I think where your thinking is going, Councilmember Giglio, is exactly right. And I'll give you an example of it's not a town, but a city that's an island in San Francisco Bay, the island of Alameda, and we backstop their planning department. They have something, so they're surrounded by water, and they have something they call the CARP, which is kind of an odd name, but it's the Climate Action Resiliency Plan, and for their city, and it's not actually that much larger than Riverhead by population. It's not a large city, but they've set their own standards based on the prediction for sea level rise, which set floor elevations for the future. So new construction has to comply with what their regulations are. What was a little bit surprising to us is they've recently amended it to raise it by 6 inches because the predictions changed. And I think that what you're thinking about in terms of a local policy for, and you were smart in the way that in setting the floor elevation of the mixed-use building a foot above, and I know exactly where you're talking about, right at the corner of Peconic and the Riverfront Park, setting an extra foot higher because we just don't know, and that's one of the challenges. The timing and the exact elevations, we just don't know. So we know what we know today, and we plan with what we know today, but the town might want to be a little bit more conservative because it's very unlikely that the floodplain elevations are going down. We aren't seeing that in our planning work. We see them projected and then potentially going up a little bit.
Right, so it might be a recommendation for our planning department to put the minimum requirement instead of 2 foot above the floodplain elevation, make it 3 feet above the floodplain elevation, or 3.5 feet. So based on your studies that you had given us, which basically shows the downtown area underwater in 25 years, maybe you can give us
Not
some-
all of it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can give us
Not all of it, but
maybe you can
it-
give us some guidance towards that.
Sure, absolutely. And we're not lawyers or engineers, but I would say that what we did is took the elevations of downtown and just mapped on top of them the projected increases. I think that that's important. I also think this getting the, as the supervisor said, getting the study funded so that you have good empirical information to defend your decision on where you're going to set that behind it in parallel is important, knowing that's going to take a little bit more time. And also, there's other strategies, mitigation strategies that may come up. I mean, the list is long, but cities and towns use a lot of different things to help mitigate. The most important thing is you're working on it right now and you have time. That's the most important thing. And these new buildings that are built, I think we want to be a little bit more conservative on, if it was me, just to make sure that we protect it. There's another thing when you talk about sea level rise that's important, which is insurability. Insurance companies set rates based on, their expected losses, and that relates to how you build too. So that's another kind of element a piece of the puzzle you're going to have to consider is insurance companies' perspective on this and how they see the future, because they have prediction models too.
Barry, thank you so much. We have a full agenda here. It's been very informative, and I did see your survey, and I think it's gonna be online today. It's going online today, and we'll stay in touch with you and be safe.
I'm not sure if it's today.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see all of you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Have a
Okay.
good day.
You take care. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay,
And just for the board, I have the results. I did print out the results of that first survey because I thought you guys might like.
were
to
they
have
put
that.
online?
And they were put online.
Perfect.
Yes, I gave you that ahead of time.
We started with PowerPoints here, a couple of days ago, and as you know, they really like your notes, and you're working on it till the last minute, but they got put online afterwards, after it was requested, and, they'll always be put online. All right, moving forward, we have, Christopher Kent concerning 331 East Main Street, Murphy and Bergman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisor and members of the town board. We're here to talk about project update for the 331 East Main Street site. If I may suggest, if I can read through my report, we'll have the board respond with any questions they may have, and then we can have Mr. Kent kind of respond. If the board's okay with that, I'll run through my report. So, as I said, the current application that we're reviewing proposes to build a 4-story, 58-foot, 2-inch tall residential apartment building with 36 market rate dwelling units. The layout consists of 10 one-bedroom units and 26 two-bedroom units. The ground floor of the site will provide 36 parking stalls, which will be visually screened from the roadway via architectural elements and landscaping, as well as a window display area along the frontage with East Main Street and a portion of the town parking district owned right-of-way. The roof level is...
Excuse me,
Yes.
could you let the applicants into the meeting also, not just me? Is it possible to allow Greg and Bobby to also participate? They are standing by, ready to join.
Say the names again, please. I see other people.
What are the
Bobby
names,
Walsh.
Chris?
What is their name?
What's that?
The names of the applicants?
Excuse-
That would be,
Sir,
the
what are
names would be Greg DeRosa and Bobby Walsh. All right.
Okay. Okay,
There's Bobby.
the rose is on.
Yes,
He just
That's
got-
Bobby Walsh.
He just
He has
has
to
to
start
add
his
his
video.
if you want.
Chris, you wanna call him?
Well, he's aware.
Oh, okay.
So, all right, so I'll continue.
Maybe he's there but doesn't have
Yep,
video.
we're good.
We're good?
All right, so, as continuing, the main pedestrian entrance to the building will be located along the western elevation of the building, which is adjacent to the town-owned parking lot right-of-way, which is across the street from the Salvation Army. Vehicular traffic would enter the ground-level parking garage from the southern property entrance. The vehicles can then exit through the same southern entrance and head towards McDermott, or they will be circulated out of the western side of the building, and then they'll have to traverse the town parking lot back down towards McDermott Avenue. The town board did hold the public hearing on both the special permit application and the site plan application. That public hearing was held on October 16th, 2019. The application requires site plan approval because it's construction and development within the downtown Riverhead Urban Renewal District. And it also requires the special permit as they are proposing to exceed the 80% lot coverage as prescribed by town code. They are currently proposing a building coverage of 89.1%. With regards to SECRA, the town board passed resolution number 712 dated September 17th, 2019, which declared the action a type 1 action and initiated a 30-day coordinated review period with the involved agencies. We have not received any objections to the town board assuming lead agency. At this point, the 30-day coordination period has ended. Upon review of the full environmental assessment form, the information contained within the site plan and special permit applications, the site plan drawings, as well as comments received at the public hearing, planning staff recommends the town board assume lead agency and issue a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA, as there are no significant negative environmental impacts stemming from the proposed development. One of the major aspects that we asked the applicant to address during the SECRA review process were the vibration impacts from piling and foundation installations. The applicant has provided a letter written by Joseph Engels, New York State licensed professional engineer. He's vice president of GEI Consultants. They detailed the proposed foundation and pier installation method. Basically what they're using, it's called a vibro aggregate pier system, which will support the foundation of the building. Now, as opposed to a traditional pile-driven foundation, which it uses repeated downstrikes to drive the structure into the ground, these piers are formed by advancing a vibrating probe into the ground to a depth of approximately 50 feet below grade. Concrete aggregate is then fed through this tube and compacted in place. This method of pier foundation construction is significantly less, it produces significantly less vibration than a traditional pile-driven foundation.
And Greg, this is not the one that they use for Riverview Lofts.
No, correct. That one was the traditional pile-driven, which basically just take a weight and drop it on a pole and drive it into the ground. So while this construction method does produce some vibrations, they have found that typical installations produce vibration velocities of about 1 inch per second, with a maximum of 1.7 inches per second, measured at a distance of 4 feet from the probe. These vibrations will be expected to dissipate as the distance from the probe gets larger. The data provided from the engineer demonstrates that these are within the generally accepted vibration limits of 2 inches per second. 2 inches is sort of the threshold which could start damaging structures, so they've demonstrated that these are within these thresholds. The applicant has agreed to conduct pre-condition surveys of all buildings located immediately adjacent to the proposed building in order to document their current conditions before construction. They've also agreed to vibration monitoring and settlement measurements at each building located within 20 to 30 feet of the probe. In the event of excessive vibrations, they can establish measures such as throttling back the energy for the probe or grouting the upper 10 feet of the aggregate pier. Any damage to adjacent buildings will be repaired by the applicants. Staff does note that during the construction of the 203-213 East Main Street project, there were a significant number of complaints made to the building department and planning departments relating to the vibration impacts, specifically to the historic DeRosca residence, which is located at 220 East Main Street, as well as the Riverhead Methodist Church, which is located at 204 East Main Street. It is noted that the DeRosca residence is approximately 295 feet away from the subject site, and the church is approximately 395 feet away from the subject site. Now, the town board, given the distance, the town board should consider whether they would like to have monitoring input in place at these sites, given the historic nature and the previous history of it. That's a decision for the town board. I have relayed that to the applicant. It is also noted that the letter does not include any information relating to the utility vaults. When they're constructing the utilities underground, they typically need to excavate some material and trench out, and then they install steel plates so that they can work in these areas. Those plates are typically driven in more like a pile foundation, so that's something that the applicant should consider. But being that they've agreed to the monitoring and the pre-construction survey assessments, I'm not sure what other sort of mitigation the town board would like to see on that. As far as traffic circulation with the plan, the initial version of the plan, which was reviewed by prior town board members, the original application had traffic entering through the south end of the site and exiting onto Main Street. Based on comments from planning staff and the town board, as I stated, the plan has been revised. Now traffic will enter back onto the town right-of-way and head south towards McDermott. Now, one of these other significant aspects of the project that we asked the applicant to detail was the construction phasing and the staging areas. On the staff report that I give you, I have attached a document of their construction phasing plans, so I would have you refer to them as I'm going through. So during phase 1 of the construction project, this will basically take approximately 30 to 60 days. During this point, construction fencing will be placed around the property boundaries. At this point, there's going to be no impacts to the town right-of-way or to the New York State right-of-way, and that phase is detailed on sheet PH1. During phase 2 of the project, which is expected to last approximately 60 to 100 days, at this point, construction fencing will be moved to the west to encompass the adjacent parking stalls located in the town right-of-way. This will allow the applicant to construct the foundation support and subsurface drainage systems. Some significant things to note. During this point of construction, there will be approximately 19 parking spaces within the town right-of-way that will be temporarily eliminated, and there will also be 2 parking stalls along East Main Street that will be temporarily eliminated during construction, for a total of 21 stalls. Upon completion of the project, these areas will be restored, and they will be utilized for parking. During phase 2 of construction, the town parking lot located to the south of the subject site along the Peconic River will remain accessible from East Main Street. And during this time, the Salvation Army parking lot, which is located to the south of their building, will also remain accessible. Now, the significant impact comes in phase 3 of the construction project, which is expected to last approximately 6 to 8 months. At this point, the construction fencing will be moved further west to encompass the entirety of that town parking lot right-of-way from East Main Street. And this area will be used to, basically facilitate their concrete pumps, cranes, and other construction-related materials. Some of these significant impacts during this phase. The town parking lot, which is located on the Peconic River, will not be accessible from Main Street, as it will be blocked off with the construction fencing. This parking lot would only be accessed from McDermott Avenue, which would require a temporary 2-way traffic. As it exists right now, when you exit that parking lot onto McDermott, it's only one way. It's only an exit out. During the temporary construction, that entrance would be converted to 2-way traffic. During this time, now this is shown on drawing, I believe it's PH 3.0. The sidewalk next to the Salvation Army building will be accessible to pedestrian traffic, as well as access to their drop boxes. Vehicular access to the Salvation Army parking lot to the south of their building will remain open. Vehicular access to the rear loading area of the Riverhead Aquarium will remain unobstructed. During this phase of construction, the existing town parking will be relocated from the eastern side of that town right-of-way to the western side. The most significant impact during this was noted during the public hearing. There was a member of the Riverhead Aquarium who came and presented some concerns about the town right-of-way right now is utilized as a bus drop-off when they're dropping off kids to come to the aquarium for field trips. We did note that this will temporarily disrupt the bus drop-off area. I have spoken with the applicant, and I'll let him detail some of the conversations that we've had as how they're going to consider this and how they're going to mitigate that. During phase 4 of the construction, at this point, they removed the construction fences just to encompass the limits of the subject property. At that point, they'll be doing facade work. The parking lot will be restored to its prior condition, and the relocation of the parking stalls will occur. Temporary construction easements will need to be put in place in order for the applicant to execute construction of this project. Any agreements and proper insurances will need to be vetted by the town attorney's office to ensure it's all done properly. And approval of the phasing plan, as it will require some construction fencing in the New York State right-of-way. They will require a permit from the state DOT. The project was reviewed by the Architectural Review Board at its October 23rd, 2019 meeting. At that time, the ARB issued a preliminary approval of the project with the condition that the applicant submit final plans and material specs. The project was reviewed by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Now, this is going to be a kind of detailed conversation. The existing building on the site is a historic residence, which has significantly been renovated. It was most recently a Subway sandwich shop. The LPC has conducted site visits. They've toured the inside of the building, and there's been some discussion from the Landmarks Preservation Commission about preserving this building. They've recommended removing taking the building off its foundation and moving it to the north across Main Street into the town-owned parking lot, which is adjacent to the funeral home. A lot of these comments in terms of the historic significance of the building, the applicant has reached out to the New York State Historic Preservation Office. We have not gotten anything in writing back from them yet, but a lot of the historic significance, we'll wait to hear back from SHPO on. But there are some significant questions stemming from the recommendation to move this building. Some of the concerns that I've noted: who will be responsible for funding the relocation of the structure? Who will be responsible for executing it? As of right now, there's been no analysis from the impacts to the town parking lot, stemming from the needs of the funeral home. I know they utilize that. It's very critical to their business. So right now, there's been no analysis of how many stalls would be lost. Right now, that parking lot across on the north side of Main Street currently takes access both from State Route 25 as well as from Union Avenue. Relocation of that structure would effectively eliminate access to that parking lot from 25. But I note on page 8 of my staff report, I've given you an aerial image. If you relocate that structure to the front of that town parking lot, the parking lot would then only be accessible through Union Avenue. And it's noted that the parcel highlighted in green is actually owned by the funeral home. I'm not sure of the existence of any cross-access easements or anything like that, so that would require an additional level of research just to ensure that we're not cutting ourselves off from our own parking lot. Some additional questions are, how would the building be operated, maintained, what would the use be, and what would the benefits to the town be? Now, this is something that the town board will have to consider. The Landmarks Preservation just sent an email this morning. They did provide some preliminary financial estimates in terms of the moving and reconstruction of this. It looks like it would probably cost somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately $85,000 plus cost of electrical work, plumbing, utilities, carpentry, masonry work. So I mean, it could cost upwards of $100,000 to relocate this structure. So the town board should consider. Again, I would recommend waiting until we get something back from SHPO to determine the historical contributions of this structure to the downtown area. As I said, it's been significantly modified. Some of the comments from the LPC have been, it's basically the roof line of the structure. There's some historic architectural elements, but beyond that.
So why are we gonna spend $100,000 for pipes, to save some pipes?
I mean, again, so the Landmarks is advisory. We're kind of compiling all all
we
their
need some
comments,
concrete-
but that is something that the town board should consider.
And I'd like to know what we hear from SHPO.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, I would recommend that prior to the
And
board making any
landmark,
decision.
They should be specific as to what the designation is. I understand it's on the second floor?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically above the
And it's
second.
only a very small component of the entire building. And who would be absorbing that cost? Not Riverhead.
That's another question, who would fund it, who would be responsible for the execution? So at this point, I would recommend the town board, let's get comments from SHPO in terms of the historical
Okay,
contributions.
so we have to pursue this further.
Oh, yeah,
As far
yeah.
as cost analysis
Correct. Yeah,
and what's
this
going on?
is just really a project update. It's been a few
Okay.
months since the board's seen this, so I'm kind of just compiling all of our comments and all the review up until this point. When it comes down to make a decision, that's something that the town board will need to consider.
So there isn't any action at this particular moment that you're asking us to take on this project, is that correct?
This is
Well,
an update.
So at this
There should
point,
be action.
at this point, the town board can assume lead agency, and if
That's what I
they,
thought.
if they find it's appropriate, they can issue a negative declaration. But in terms of approvals, I would recommend holding off until we get something from SHPO, and then let the board consider everything.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
okay.
I think the environmental issues have been addressed thoroughly, and, I'll let you finish your report, and then I'll go into it, but.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up very quick. The project was reviewed by the Town Conservation Advisory Council. They recommended approval conditioned upon getting the New York State DEC dewatering permits, as well as Suffolk County Health Department approval. That's pretty much par for the course. The applicant has consulted with the DEC. They're currently waiting on their dewatering permit approvals. Staff recommends that can be made a condition of preliminary approval, that prior to final, they get those required DEC permits. There were some town engineer comments, there were some fire marshal comments, I won't go through every one of them. Project was reviewed to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, they had no objection to the town assuming lead agency. We did get comments back from the sewer district, from the water district. Water district noted that it is within the boundaries of the Riverhead district and connection is available. We got some comments from the health department, and as I stated, the applicant is working with SHPO, and reviewing comments from them are pending. So at this point, that's my report. I'd open up to the board if they have any questions.
I have one question.
Okay.
This is gonna be very clear. What I'm looking at is moving a building that has a small, tiny, possibility of landmark designation, and move it away from its location so a 36 unit construction project can begin, and Riverhead absorbs the $100,000 that's gonna cost to move the building?
No. That cost would be, we would ask the applicant to bear that cost. That's
Oh.
why we asked the Landmarks Preservation Commission, a couple of the members felt it was important that this structure was significant to the historic district, and looking at, exploring the possibilities of moving the structure. If the cost is not feasible, which, if it's $85,000 just to move it, and then we gotta build a foundation, and we gotta build a first floor to put this on top of, we need to look at all the construction costs involved in that too, and what the significance of this building is, which is, my question to the applicant is, when was the application to SHPO made, and why are they, when was the application to SHPO made?
It was made this spring, March. We made an application to SHPO in March.
And you haven't had any correspondence from them yet?
Oh, there's been correspondence back and forth between SHPO and VHB, which is our planning and engineering firm that's handling the SHPO application.
I would really like to see that application and the correspondence back from SHPO as to what their concerns were, and whether or not they thought that this building had any significance.
Okay, your planning staff has been received. I think they've been copied on all of the emails back and forth.
I thought that our planner had said that he didn't have any correspondence on that.
I got a notification that they made an application. I did have some conversation with the SHPO reviewer, but I haven't seen anything, I haven't seen anything confirmed. It's just been
Okay, we
conversations.
have a tremendous amount of projects. So far, we're gonna wait for SHPO, and then we're gonna share and move.
Yeah, but
where
if
we
we're,
stand.
if I could just finish
Yeah, go
asking my questions.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so as far as the negative declaration under SECRA, and as far as the monitoring for the surrounding properties, I think if it was necessary, if the vibration was too much and the surrounding properties were saying that they were getting stress fractures or what have you, that would be the time that we would put the monitors on. But I think it's important to communicate with the neighbors as to the technique that they plan on using with the casing and then the pouring of the concrete and the vibration, so that they can confirm with their engineers, and our engineers can also be consulted. So that should be part of the secret determination, that if we do deem it a negative declaration under SECRA, and there's a majority of the board that feel that way, that if the monitoring is necessary, that should be in the secret determination.
Absolutely can, and I agree. I would actually go as far as to recommend that forget if the vibration is too much, that should just be a requirement. That monitoring should be in place. That would be a mitigation measure for one of the impacts that we've measured, so.
I would also like in the secret determination that if it turns out that this technique for driving the piles is creating too much vibration, that we go to the helicoil system, that we switch over to a different type of technique. that, because I'm not familiar with this technique, but I am familiar with driving piles, and I am familiar with the helicoil system. So, that if this technique is creating too much vibration, that we switch over to that other type of system and give us the option, because that wasn't the case with the other project.
Alrighty. I'll let the applicant respond to that one. I will note that.
Based on the letter that we've received from the engineer, we're not expecting significant impact beyond about 11-foot radius from the location of the installation. I'd have Bobby speak more to that. He's in charge of the construction of the project.
Yeah, it's just a safety net that I want. I mean, if your engineer is correct and it's not creating a significant vibration, then everything should be fine. But if it's not, then we have to address that.
Right. I understand. I
So,
understand. We should make that precaution.
To try to switch to the helical pile system, I mean, we've investigated that, and due to the nature of the subsurface conditions here, close to the river, the sand, the water infiltration, not sure it's gonna work, but we can reinvestigate that.
Yeah, I just wanted in the secret determination that we're aware that this potential pile driving that I'm not familiar with could create a more significant vibration than what you are expecting or what anybody was expecting, so it's just a safety net.
Okay.
And then also with the staging, it looks like the town parking lot would be shut down for about a year, based on these timelines for construction phases. So, and the demo is expected to be 30 to 60 days, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any way that you can stage on your property for the demo period?
I don't believe we're blocking off there's no impact during the demo period at all. There's no impact on the parking lot.
Correct.
Yes, during phase one, during the demolition, the construction fencing will be placed on the limits of their property. It's not until phase two that they would move to encompass the existing parking stalls in that site.
And where do they go in phase two?
So phase two, if you look at drawing in the packet, I believe it's PH2.
Mhm.
So when you look on phase two, the limits of the fencing would be moved to the west just to encompass the existing parking stalls. During that time, you would still have access from Main Street to that parking lot to the south.
Here, PH2.
Right, so this doesn't impact Turquoise Grill.
No, it's not until phase three that the access to that southern parking lot would be eliminated from Main Street.
So, so at that phase, it does impact that restaurant.
At that phase, yes. Now, so at phase three, you would remove the access from 25 to that southern parking lot, and you would have to access that parking lot from McDermott Avenue.
It would become two-way at that point in time.
Correct.
So you could access still the parking for
So
Turquoise.
they will be able to get
Correct.
customers in and out.
Correct.
When
So
you're
we're really
going-
looking at about 6 to 8 months of closing off the access through that driveway.
And I will also note during that 6 to 8 month time frame, there's no note on the plans or the construction phasing plan where the construction workers will park their vehicles. There's no mention of where deliveries are going to be taken from the site. I'm not sure if they're going to be taken from 25 or if the vehicles are going to enter from McDermott. But that's something that, is detailed in the report and the applicant should address. However many number of construction workers are going to be on site, they would probably tend to want to park in that southern parking lot. But being that we're already eliminating approximately 21 parking stalls in the downtown area, we should consider where we'd want the construction vehicles to park.
So how many parking spaces did we lose when we did Riverview Lofts? Because you're talking 21 total for this project, correct?
Well, that's just temporary. The 21 parking spaces is just temporary during construction.
During the construction.
I don't have the numbers for Riverview Lofts off the top of my head. I'd have to get that information.
0, they were all private lots.
All right.
So that's
Yeah.
a lot, actually. How long will we lose the 21 spaces for?
So that would be from phase,
About a year.
I believe from phase 2 to phase 3, so about 3 months, plus it could be approximately up to a year. That from the phase 2 and the phase 3, where there would be the impacts, you're looking at approximately 21 stalls, obviously plus the increased demand from construction workers. And
But there really isn't any other place to stage.
correct.
I mean, there's,
Correct.
Well, Riverview Loss was able to use the other property.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's existing buildings to the east and the town parking lot to the west and the south. It's really unfortunately the only method that they have to construct this building.
yep.
So you're saying you've had correspondence from SHPO, but you haven't had a determination from them?
No, we don't have a determination yet from SHPO, but we're expecting to have it within the next couple of weeks. There has been ongoing conversation back and forth by emails between the consultant and the state.
Okay, and that will be forwarded to Greg.
Right.
They
I
did
think-
ask for just some additional photos, interior photos of the building that show that the interior of the building was gutted, so the historic integrity of the building was compromised when they closed it up for food uses. And this was prior to Subway. Subway was a second renovation. There was a first renovation prior to that. And there's been information provided by the contractor, Phil Hancock, who's also the owner, as to what he did. He also took the LPC members on a tour of the building, and they were in agreement that some of the what they call the historic fabric of the building was no longer present. So that's why they think the historic value of the building is really the upper floor, the windows of the second floor, and the roof line is really the entire historic value. And when you look at relocating cost, the estimate of $85,000 is basically just to get the building off of this side and put it across the street. You're gonna have a lot of additional costs beyond that. You're gonna have to completely rebuild the interior of the building. You're gonna have to create internal support within the building. You're gonna have to establish utilities. You're gonna have to bring in sewer, water, electric. You're gonna have to do
Agreed.
some kind of operation and maintenance plan for the building. You're gonna have to determine occupants. So you're
And-
talking
and
about
then-
years. You're
and
talking
then-
about years of this building probably sitting on that site. So like what happened with the East End Arts Council, when there was a relocated old schoolhouse to the East End Arts Council site, that building sat on site for many years before the town undertook any renovations to get that building done. So the $85,000 is only the initial cost of relocating what portion of that building is considered historic to the
I
site.
agree, and I think that the feasibility and the cost analysis in order to move that building, and then the removal of parking spaces in the parking district in order for the placement of the building and the new construction of the first floor, I think it's cost prohibitive, but, you know, we're not in that phase yet. You're just looking for the secret determination, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And just to go along with the monitoring, I mean, I know we're using different file driving, but in light of what happened with, the church and the other house, I mean, I would wanna have the monitoring.
Yep, that's what he said.
Yeah, he's gonna
Right.
include that.
Yeah, it has to.
That's
Right.
part of it.
You're talking about the church having a monitor? That church is so far beyond the limits of any impact. I can't see why you'd want to have the church or Mrs. Droska's house.
Yeah, I
It's
think
so
it's
far.
I think it's the Howell House and the Preston House and those historic structures that are, you know, more concerned, but I think they're shored up pretty good, so, but if the monitoring is gonna be a requirement, it really is just putting a monitor, it's a minimal expense.
And when does it go back to the ARB? Cause they didn't do final.
I mean, ARB, you know, obviously ARB hasn't met for a number of months.
But I think they
but
can start meeting now.
That's something we can get them on, you know, they can provide final material samples, you know, get the final approval. Again, until we get SHPO, we're not gonna be recommending an approval, so I think that's something that, you know, we can accomplish before we would get to that point.
Yeah, it's not an approval of the project, it's
Correct.
just a secret determination.
Correct.
Okay.
So some of the questions that were asked about parking, we are going to try to make some agreements. We've reached out to a couple of people to do some off-site parking. But that's only a very temporary situation. We're probably looking at 3 to 4 months where workers will have to park off-site. Once we get the slab put in for the parking garage, workers will park on-site.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, so direction from the board, we can move to prepare a resolution for assuming lead agency and issue a negative declaration, and we'll encompass all the things from the vibration, traffic circulation, we'll encompass all of that.
Well, I
Once we
mean,
hear
I'm
from Sha-
okay with lead agency, but I would like to look over, I mean, we just went over it today. I'd like to have a little time to look at all of it for the neg deck.
Okay?
Yes.
Right. And we
So-
have to wait for SHPO anyway, so at least I'd
We
like
have
to.
plenty of time.
Right. I'd like to be able to look over everything.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
So,
Next up, moving forward. All right, we're gonna conclude this, hearing, and we're gonna move on to the second one. Special permit application of a 15,000 square foot medical office, parcel, northwest corner of Main Street and Union Avenue in Aquabog.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
It's shorter, it's shorter.
I mean, it's, yeah, it's
I'll take that one. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Bergman and Murphy also.
I have to get my jacket.
Yep, and I would actually just like to note the agenda shows the representative for the application as Tim Rump. It's actually gonna be Steve Naroda.
I'll ask him.
Okay.
Maybe he's not at his computer.
I don't have his contact information.
All right, so if you
So,
wanna.
yeah, I did speak with the applicant prior to this meeting. He's had my staff report for some time. He was, he had
Okay.
no issues with any of the questions that I've raised on it. So I would think maybe we'll just relay anything that happens to him.
Okay, he can always write into us also.
All right, so what we are reviewing here is a special permit application which is seeking a special permit from the town board to allow the development of 2 professional medical office buildings totaling 14,515 square feet. They will be 2 single-story buildings. One of the buildings will have a footprint of 6,415 square feet. The other will have a square footage of 8,100 square feet. A new curb cut would be created to access the site from Union Avenue. That curb cut would be located approximately 580 feet north of the intersection of Union Avenue and Main Road. The sites would also share cross-access with 2 existing adjacent professional office buildings which are currently constructed at the northwest corner of Main Road and Union Avenue. This would effectively create a campus-style professional office development across 4 separate parcels. The subject site, which is located in the northwest corner of Main Road and Union Avenue, particularly identified as Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 85-2-111.1 and 111.3. Parcel 111.1 is a 2.03 acre parcel which has approximately 220 feet of frontage on Union Avenue, while tax map 111.3 is a 1.5 acre parcel which has approximately 190 feet of frontage on Main Road. Both parcels are part of a 4-lot minor subdivision which was known as Essex, Dennis, and Reeve, which was approved by the Riverhead Planning Board in 1986 and filed with the Suffolk County Clerk in November of 1986. The subject parcels are both located within the Rural Corridor Zoning Use District. Pursuant to Town Code, professional offices are a specially permitted use within the RLC, provided that both sites are within a quarter-mile of the Hamlet Center zoning district. Both subject parcels do fall within that quarter-mile requirement, and the Hamlet Center zoning district is located to the east of the site. Character of the surrounding area is a mix of residential, commercial, and agricultural. There are 2 existing professional offices located on the northwest corner of that intersection. The subject's property site shares its western property boundary with a 2.76 acre parcel which is improved with a 2-story single-family residence as well as several sheds. And the site shares its northern property boundary with a 6-acre parcel, which is presently developed with several hoop houses as well as a single-family residence. In terms of SECRA, the proposed action is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. Based upon review of the full EAF and the site plan application, staff has specific concerns with traffic impacts as a result of the proposed action. Now, SECRA obviously involves the reviewing board, reviewing agency to look at the potential impacts from this project, but it also requires the governing agency to take a hard look at related development, or it would risk segmenting the SECRA review, which is illegal under the SECRA regulations. The town board is currently reviewing a similar application for a professional medical office for the parcel located to the east across Union Avenue. Now, the New York State DEC SECRA handbook has provided a litmus test in order for the governing agency to determine whether segmentation is occurring. Specific to this application would be the location. Is there a common geographic location involved? The answer for that is yes. And the impacts. Do any of the activities considered share a common impact that may, if the activities are reviewed as one project, result in a potentially significant impact? The answer to that question is yes. Now, the DEC Full Environmental Assessment Workbook gives guidance in determining the thresholds for a significant impact. In terms of medical office with regards to traffic generation, the threshold for a significant impact is 31,000 square feet of development. Now, both of the projects, meaning the one we're reviewing right now, as well as to the one across Union Avenue, the total square footage of medical office is 29,515 square feet. Now, although this is slightly below establishing that threshold, to my knowledge, there has never been any sort of traffic analysis that has been done at this intersection based on the prior development. So staff has recommended to the applicant, and they are aware of this, that we would like them to prepare a traffic impact statement. Now, this traffic impact statement would have to analyze both this project as well as the proposed development across Union Avenue, and it should also take into account the existing office development, as all of those uses will contribute to traffic impacts at that intersection. Staff recommends that specific attention should be paid to the peak traffic times, meaning September, October. You know, as everyone is well aware in the town, that Main Road is effectively stopped. So staff does have concerns and would recommend the preparation of a TIS. Being that that's the only significant concern, we recommend withholding a determination of significance until the applicant can prepare a TIS, and that can be reviewed and analyzed. We would recommend a coordinated review. We would coordinate closely with the DOT, and we would share the results of that TIS, because that will go a long way in determining whether a traffic signal would be warranted at that intersection. As far as building setbacks, the proposed building setbacks all conform with the requirements of the town code, and they are roughly commensurate with the existing office development that's there, so it would not create any inconsistencies in terms of building massing or appearance. As I said, the 4 parcels on that northwest corner were part of a historic subdivision. As a requirement of that subdivision, they were required to file cross-access easements. On one of the pages of my staff report, I've given you an aerial image just to kind of roughly show you where the access easement would be. Again, so this would serve all 4 parcels. They would access off Union Avenue, and then traffic would circulate throughout the site. There were some issues on the site plan, which are more site plan issues. I noted that the traffic circulation sort of dead ends on 2 of the parcels. You know, I would recommend that you just continue a circular loop throughout the entire parcel just for emergency vehicle access. The site plan in terms of landscaping and buffer areas, the conceptual site plan does identify scenic buffer easements along the southern, western, and northern property boundaries. In the absence of this being flagged in the field for verification, it's sort of difficult to ascertain what type of vegetation is within those scenic buffer areas. So staff recommends that the applicant just simply rope it off, or put some flaggings, so that we can ascertain what the visual impacts are and determine if they're going to need any additional screening, any additional vegetation. I do note that the existing offices do not have a significant vegetative buffer. But that's something that we would ask them to do, just so we can advise the board as to what the existing vegetation would serve as. There are some supplementary guidelines. The town board, if they want, there is currently a sidewalk along State Route 25. One of the supplementary guidelines requires sidewalks along public rights-of-way. The town board should consider whether they would like a sidewalk along Union Avenue. The sidewalk would effectively terminate at the northern end, so it would kind of be like the sidewalk to nowhere, but the town board could require that. In terms of visual impacts, the applicant did provide on the first page of that site plan, they have provided some examples of previous projects that they've worked on. The character of the building should remain sort of rural and in character with the area. Building elevations and materials are traditionally a planning board function of the site plan review, but the town board, they can make some recommendations. They can surely impose some requirements as a condition of the special permit, if they have specific recommendations in terms of materials, et cetera. And it'll be reviewed by the ARB planning board. But if the town board wants to put in its recommendations, it can do that.
They're nice looking buildings. They're very consistent with the NEPA site insurance building that's there.
Yes, agreed.
NSA? Is that where NSA is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also having the cross-access with the existing building is a nice plus for this, too.
Good.
Yeah, it's like
Not doing another, not
Yeah.
having to put a curb cut on.
Back
Main
in
Road.
1986, they kind of, they were looking forward, and I think these 4 parcels were really envisioned to be, an office campus style development. So the project conforms with all the dimensional requirements of the RLC zoning district. There may be some slight changes. As I said, that dead end, if they were to continue that, it may impact impervious coverage. But that's something that can be handled through revisions. I mean, I don't think that's a significant impediment to the project. At this point, I think the applicant, because we did sort of in that development across Union Avenue, we kind of got bogged down between a single building, 2-story versus a campus style layout. So the function of this meeting is to really introduce the application to the board, see if it can garner its support with the single-story campus style layout. And some of those details, just in terms of impervious coverage, vegetation, they can be handled as a function of the site plan review.
I would be interested in seeing the results of the traffic survey.
Yes.
And knowing that road, the northern end, especially like you said during peak time, September, October, has Helen's Greenhouses, which is a very crowded farm stand. And a lot of that traffic might be diverted back down to Main Street as well. So I would like to just see how they are gonna, plan for that.
Agreed. And I have spoken with the applicant. They are both projects, this one currently as well as the one across Union Avenue. They are conversing. I believe they're going to share some of the responsibility of the TIS, so it doesn't just fall on one applicant. So we will get that, and we will analyze that prior to any approvals or public hearings. The site proposes permeable parking. There are some just questions with that, again, regarding site plan review, but at this point, staff would recommend that the town board circulate a request for lead agency status for the purposes of secret review. We will send out that coordination letter to involved agencies, and again, until we get the preparation of the TIS completed and that's reviewed, that would be the step that we're at. At this point, if the board has any questions, I'd like to open it up to the board.
I would
Great.
say start the coordinated review.
Good.
I mean, I definitely like the idea of the campus style better. I mean, I don't think a 2-story really fits in that area. It's still kind of a rural area. And the building across the street, I don't know, fits in nicely. Looks like Camden Farnworth building. Fits in nicely with the area and the woods, and it's kind of set back.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, thank you. Okay. Site plan to build a handicap accessible ramp at the bank on northwest corner of East Main Street and East Avenue. This one should be a quick one, huh?
This is gonna be a quick one.
Well, we got these out of the way. Thank you for calling them up, Tim.
We needed to. They've
Yeah,
been sitting
yeah,
in abeyance for a while, so
Yeah,
it's good
good.
to get some movement going here.
Oh, yeah. And I think now that we are opening the we're on construction phase,
Timing was good.
I'm gonna see a huge amount, we're gonna see a
Thank
huge
you.
amount of applicants.
Mhm.
Anyway, how come we have the 2 biggest people in the world.
That was intentional, no.
We had both of you jammed in those.
For the
Okay.
bookends.
It is
Welcome
on-
back
yeah.
again, Greg.
All right, yes, it's the Greg show today. All right, so I'll run through this very quickly because it's a minor application.
Okay.
We've received and reviewed an administrative site plan application to construct an ADA compliant ramp as well as stairs at the front entrance of an existing bank in downtown Riverhead. They also propose to replace existing non-compliant site lighting, repave and restripe the existing parking lot, and replace the main door. The site plan does not propose any increase in floor area or occupiable space. Although minor, because the site is located in the downtown Riverhead Historic District pursuant to our town code, section 225, it is considered a type 1 action. Very minor impacts. We're going to do a 30-day coordinated period review. I would not expect to get any objection to us, being that these are minor site improvements. So we'll recommend to circulate a request for lead agency, and we further recommend the issuance of a negative declaration. The site is located at 140 East Main Street on the northwest corner of East Main Street and East Avenue, presently approved with a 4,400 square foot brick building, 2-story, which was previously operated as North Fork Bank and is now under the ownership of First National Bank of Long Island. Site currently has 2 curb cuts. They're not proposing any change to the existing curb cuts. The site plan does propose, as I said, to remove all existing non-compliant building lighting and will be replaced with dark sky compliant LED lighting fixtures, including 2 high hat fixtures underneath the canopy, 3 pole mounted LED parking lot lights, and 9 LED wall mounted fixtures. All fixtures comply with the 16-foot maximum mounting height as well as the 3,000 degree Kelvin color temperature. The Landmarks Preservation Commission did review the application. They had no objections to the plan submitted, with the assumption that the bricks on the face of the ramp and stairs will be color matched as closely as possible to the existing building. The Architectural Review Board also reviewed the application. They had some comments. They wanted to see building facade elevations of the affected areas, current photos, landscape drawings, facade details, signage details, as well as all 4 elevations of the building. The application, actually, this morning, I did attach it to the application on my staff report. They did provide elevations of the building, so I will refer it back to the ARB. But being that the scope of work is extremely limited, the town board could just decide to approve it without the ARB's final recommendation. The site, they're going to restripe the parking lot in the existing site. Currently, the site provides 10 parking stalls. They're going to restripe them, and they're actually going to get an extra parking stall, so they'll have 11, including 1 handicap accessible stall. There's a minor revision that they need to show on the site plan to the size of the parking stalls, but that's not significant. Staff does note that in order to construct the ramp and stairs, the applicant will need to eliminate the existing landscaping on the western side of the main entrance. Staff recommends that based on the loss of the vegetation and the condition of the existing vegetation, the applicant should prepare a landscaping plan to sort of just freshen up the landscaping on the site, make it more visually appealing to the downtown streetscape. Referral to the Suffolk County Planning Commission is not required. So for the next step for this one, we're going to initiate the 30-day coordinated review period. We'll coordinate with involved agencies. At that point, being that the site plan does fall under the administrative site plan category, the town board, in its discretion, can choose to waive the public hearing. I would just like to get some feedback. Would the board like to hold a public hearing on this, or is it something that they?
I think what we're looking at is really upgrading the location. We're not adding, we're not expanding, we're not going up, we're not going down.
It's a handicap ramp and some
It's a
stairs.
handicap ramp.
Pretty
Not
benign to
significant,
me.
yeah. I would
Yeah,
recommend,
we
just in
would-
terms of moving the application along, the board agrees, we can waive the requirement for a public hearing. Once the 30-day coordination period ends, we can write up an administrative approval.
Right, so do we know what the proposed use of the building is going to be?
It is going to be a bank. It's going to be First National Bank of Long Island.
So what I would like to request, and what they're doing in other townships, in the town of Huntington and other areas where parking seems to be a problem, is that after the hours of the bank closure, that we be allowed to utilize that parking for public parking. So that they don't rope it off. That's what they did in, the village of Huntington where parking was a problem.
Oh, yeah, I know, I park at that bank when I go to the Paramount all the time, so.
I always park there for.
Yeah,
I can relay that information to the applicant. I can't see why they would have any objections as long as it doesn't impede during their
Who's
business
the
hours.
applicant?
This is Kevin, he's
Oh,
the
okay.
design professional for Bowler Engineering.
Sorry, I was out of the room.
I think he can relay that question right to the applicant and we can get an answer for that.
very good. And this handicap ramp is on their property, right? It's not
Correct.
on the
There's-
town
Correct.
sidewalk?
There's nothing in the town parking lot, there's nothing on town property, and it does not go into the state right of way.
And what is that condition of that sidewalk on the town property?
Oh, yeah, 'cause the one,
When I walked, I mean, the sidewalk seemed to be in good condition. It was actually it's in the state right of way, but I didn't see any damage to it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because we have had some problems with trip hazards and things of that nature. So
the
handicap
sidewalk
ramp, you're
in
going to
front
be,
of the Howell House was a mess.
you're going to be directing the people to this handicap ramp. I just don't want them to trip on the way to the handicap
Right.
ramp because that would be kind of silly.
Counterproductive?
Would be more than silly.
Yeah, it's counterproductive, huh?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that the sidewalk is in good condition if we're not going to have a public hearing, and the state probably isn't going to really weigh in on this.
Great.
All right.
But no work.
Greg, if I may, I just wanna say,
No work's being
I-
done on the drive-up thing?
I'm sorry, what was that, Councilwoman?
Sorry, I was out of the room for a minute. Nothing's happening with this drive-up part?
No, they're gonna restripe and repave the parking lot. I believe it's gonna be just a drive-up window. I did ask the applicant, and he said, I asked Mr. Ream.
That's a really weird, tight,
Yep, it's in a pre-existing condition, so,
Yep, and it's very desirable to have a drive-up bank.
yes.
yes.
And I'm sorry,
really-
Mr. Hubbard, I think we're interrupted.
I just wanted to thank you for the work you've done on these projects. We're very lucky to have you, and I think you do a great job on all your reports. They're very informative and very thorough, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that, thank you, sir.
But we're getting used
Second
to your
that
new
motion.
haircut.
The quarantine haircut, I knew a comment was coming.
All right, so on to the next one, because I have to get
Oh,
my
yeah.
son to the doctor. so-
Okay.
That's all from me.
Thanks, Greg.
Chip, do we have the PowerPoint back up? All right, moving forward, again, thank you, Greg, great job
Thank you,
informing
Greg.
everyone. Moving forward, temporary permitting for outdoor seating at restaurants, we're just waiting for the PowerPoint to return. Okay. Last week, I proposed to the board, off-premise dining, concerning restaurants on Main Street, possibly closing Main Street. I'll just give you a very quick overview. If you want further information, you can go back, the PowerPoint is online, under last week's documents, and it's a quick overview. The board decided to move forward with it. Jody, Councilwoman Giglio, and Councilwoman Kent are on this project to help open back, Riverhead. Can you just push the slide, Chip, forward? For some reason, either. Okay, great. This is a temporary, project.
Tuesday, right?
We have to designate a date for it. It applies to restaurants where they can utilize grass areas of 20% of their parking area or their sidewalks, grass areas. And you must maintain all social distancing protocols that are in place, CDC and Department of Health. Only licensed restaurants will be considered for temporary outdoor restaurant dining. It applies to any restaurant regardless of size. A fire marshal inspection is necessary. Applications will be available on the website, on the town's website. Hopefully, by tomorrow. I know that Jody's been working closely with Jeff as far as getting this forward. Applications can be submitted virtually to the building department website, the bid, and the Chamber of Commerce, and they will be accepted virtually, and they will be fast-tracked. This process, if it is approved, and it's gonna need some more massaging and get it up to par, will only be valid after the governor designates phase 3 of opening up, restaurants. However, we are having some efforts to try to, possibly work on curbside, for restaurants that have curbside pickup to have benches around and people can pick it up, and we're working on that. We have it up the food chain, not sure where it's gonna go. Can I get the next slide?
So is this the same presentation that we saw on
Yes.
Tuesday, or this is
Yeah,
different?
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then can I
It's just
just,
recap.
cause I have to go, so rather than redoing what we did Tuesday, can
Well,
I just
this
make?
is only 3 more slides, Jody, let me just
Okay.
finish. This is just a quick example of what your tables may look like on the outside. Again, this all has to be corrected.
Worried about the one on the end that's up in the air.
Yeah, isn't it?
I'm
These are
not
some
sitting at that one.
locations, the Suffolk Theater, the Peconic Riverfront, Long Island Sports Park, East End Arts, and the train station for, permitting for possibly, movies and concerts, and that's being worked on, and, these are our efforts going forward concerning, reopening Riverhead, and it looks like the outside sitting is gonna be there. Here you have these locations where you can have chairs throughout in open areas. This is the Riverhead train station. If you notice, you have 2 parking spots. One would be your car. This is a place where you can sit, you can have your lounge chairs, table, and you have the social distancing, and then you have another car parked there separating, and then you have your own personal space. And these are all recommendations, and we're hoping to have this, up and running as soon as possible, so when that phase 3 to open restaurants commences, we can, start running. Go ahead. I know, Jody, you have to leave, you wanna
Yeah, I just,
go forward?
seeing as we went over this on Tuesday and we had some questions about the application and what would be required of an applicant, did you finalize that? Jefferson? And Craig?
And I have something to add too.
Because I'd really like to get those applications up online and get people applying for them, getting them fast-tracked, and then let them put the tables and chairs and tents out for inspection before we get inundated, because I know the supervisor's been working diligently on trying to change the phases so that outdoor seating could go from phase 3 to phase 2, and they're trying to shorten the 2-week time frame between phases. So, this could happen like pretty quick, and I don't want your department to be inundated with applications. I think we should start early.
Right now, the application's pretty well complete. I did circulate the Health Department guidance document to all of
Okay,
you.
that's good.
That's also posted on the website. That'll be attachment to the actual application. I want to clarify the drawing that's in the plan, because the other drawings I've seen prepared by other people show 6 feet between tables. That's not in compliance with the governor's distancing requirement.
Okay.
It's 6 feet between patrons, so that the drawing needs to show it's 6 feet between
Okay.
the person sitting next to, behind me, so to speak.
So then the diagram for them to follow, which didn't have those 6 feet
Right.
recommendations on it at all, has been revised to include that?
It will be. It will be revised.
Okay.
It has not been yet.
How soon can you get that, how soon do you think you can get this application up online?
If you're okay with what we have presented, as long as we modify the drawing, we can get it up very quickly. And it's just a question of inserting that drawing into the document and then just posting on the website.
Jeff, I would like to see it for one final review, make
Yes,
sure
yeah,
that
I
all the.
would too. I know you have to go. I am appreciative
Yes.
of that.
That's fine.
But I need to
we have a
make sure.
meeting Tuesday. Bob, is this something that we vote
I
on?
don't wanna wait another till Tuesday for
Bob?
the application.
No, we're not waiting.
Well, I'm talking Tuesday.
I don't wanna wait until Tuesday. It was from Tuesday to Thursday, so your recommendations
Right,
were
but we
supposed to
can't
be.
even.
And Jody, to add to
Not
what you-
reopening yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got like a
No,
day.
Hold
It
on,
could
to
be
add,
any day.
to add to the statements you made, the governor can also designate at any time. He
Right.
does not have to wait.
I know that.
So we need to move on this as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Start the application process.
I mean, Bob,
The
it's,
application,
waited from Tuesday to
it take
today.
me 10 minutes to make sure it meets the CDC mandates and the Department of Health. I'll look at the guidelines, the federal and the state guidelines. I know them. We can get this on as soon as possible.
Thank you.
If we have to adjust, Catherine, if you have any, ideas and you want to adjust, that's always an option.
well,
We
a
need
couple
to
things
start
I wanna
running.
bring up, and by the way, I'm not against it. I like the ideas.
Okay, so if
I
I could
just,
just
you're,
finish
I know
with
you're.
mine, and then I'm gonna go, and then I'll
Okay.
watch what you're saying after
Okay.
I'm gone.
Sure.
So, the application, the sketch drawing should be clear as to what the expectations are as far as the 6-foot separation between people, so that would essentially mean chairs, not necessarily tables. And then the New York Forward affirmation for the certificate that the supervisor was talking about that said had to be submitted, I thought you said it had to be submitted to the state. Is that part of the permit process, that affirmation certificate, is that part of the permit packet? And
Those
does
is-
that get submitted to us or to the state?
That is a state form that's submitted by the state. It's mandatory if you're gonna reopen.
Okay, so can we collect that affirmation form and then send all the applications we get in off to the state so they can see exactly what's being proposed?
The applications are filled out online.
I'm saying
But-
our application could include the New York State affirmation, and then once we get an application in, we can send all of those applications to Economic Development of New York State.
You can, for them to review.
Right,
That-
instead of having an applicant have to submit it to us and then submit it to the state.
They don't have
and
to
then-
submit it to us, it's online. They fill it out and it goes right to the state. It's very easy, they simplified it. They get online, they go onto the site, they put their building name, and they say, they check off a couple of boxes. We meet the parameters, the protocol, and they press submit, and it's done.
Okay,
There's
so
no back
that
and
link
forth.
to that website and that affirmation form is in the application process online?
It will be.
It will be, thank you. Because then they could just go to our application, fill it out online, send it to us, click on the link and send it off to the state. And we should have a copy of it also. And
our
then,
Go ahead.
as far as the outdoor seating and the availability of space for the restaurants that do not have any public area, it would be my recommendation to the board that I would like you to consider is moving more tables to the riverfront park that we have. As long as they maintain the 6-foot separation distance between people, then, Stotsky Park, they're not being used, so we could move those picnic tables from Stotsky Park over to the riverfront so that more people can pick up their food downtown and go right out to the town park on the riverfront and eat. And maybe put some
Absolutely.
more garbage pails there also. And that was all that I had. And then, as far as the special event, I know Tim is well versed as to what we need to do with those as far as fast tracking those special event permits. And Frank and I talked about the TDR program, so I'll let you
Yeah, just quickly.
capture that for me, and I have to get my son to the doctor because they squeezed him in.
Okay, good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so that was, pretty quick.
Yeah, well, she's got it in front.
Moving forward.
Just a few things for me. Is this for the whole town, or are we only talking, Jeff? Is this for the whole town, or are we only talking downtown area?
That'd be the whole,
Yes.
from what I gathered, this would be the whole town.
Great.
That's what we discussed on Tuesday, I believe,
Right,
the
that's
whole
what I
town.
thought, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to think on some of the places on Route 58, I
Right.
mean, just with the traffic and such, I think we have to take a look at that. And I had mentioned
Tim, I didn't know you were doing this
that I'd like to
special
have some
permit.
discussion
Yeah.
about
Sorry.
possibly closing off
Oh,
Main Street
you
at
are now.
certain
It's a
times,
joke, yeah.
maybe Saturday
Oh,
night
okay.
in the evening.
I was,
I'll wait a second, sorry.
go ahead.
Not for vendors, not to bring in vendors, but, to give people more room to put tables, or even if some of the businesses wanna be open that night or something, but that's a discussion I'd like to have with the chamber and the bid.
And
And
also
see-
New York State.
I'm sorry, yeah, right, I know, 'cause it's a state road. But, we are able to do it for Alive on 25.
I'm not familiar with that process, I was not involved with it.
Okay, so that was something I wanted to ask about, yeah, so I wanna be able to look it all over, you're going to tweak it some more and then send us the new one.
Yep.
And Bob, is this something that we would vote on, or how does it work?
Well, sidewalks currently, you have legislation that's currently on the books that allows restaurants to utilize sidewalks. There is an application process, there's a chapter, and I don't recall the chapter section and right off the top of my head. The use of your parking lots, however, way back in the day, we used to pass a blanket resolution authorizing the use of all town facilities. That probably would be best suited if the board would adopt a resolution to authorize that. In the interim, if you wish, that could be part of an emergency order as well. So we could do it that way. We could do it either way, I think, given this fact that we're still under an emergency scenario, and there's been
And
a
we're gonna
continued
be there
state
for
of
quite
emergency.
some time.
Because
Right.
the supervisor is allowed to utilize town facilities and town, parcels as part of that COVID response.
Well, and I agree with your point that, I mean, we wanna be able to hit the ground running. I
Right.
mean, these people have been waiting, and, I also think it's a great opportunity for us to try some of the things that we've talked about over the years, but since it's temporary, so this gives us an opportunity to try out some different things.
Okay.
I think, oh, and about the tents, you didn't talk about that, was that only
I'm
Joe?
gonna talk about it in a minute. if
Oh,
you-
okay,
yeah,
I just
okay.
wanted you to clarify how the tents will work.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Bob,
Okay.
I just want to.
I just
I
wanted
mean-
to add, from Tuesday's conversation, we talked about a time limit for them to close shop.
Absolutely.
I think we really need to look at that, because in talking to bid members and chamber members, 9:30 is way early to close. They're
Sure,
not gonna
sure.
make any money. It's just not gonna happen.
Right.
So we really need to
Agreed.
look at extending those hours and allow them, especially on
In
the
the
Friday
summer.
and Saturday nights, for sure. But to allow those hours to go a little bit further, and that's one of the things I think we needed to tweak.
If you could give me an hour now, I can incorporate it now. So are we looking 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock?
I would say midnight. Let's start with midnight and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm good
Wow,
with
what a
midnight.
party
And we can always
Well,
adopt.
Not that I'm up that
adjust it.
late, but.
No, I'll be asleep.
You'll be
Oh, come on, Jeff. I had one other thing I wanted
I'm in
to-
sleep by 9, so it doesn't matter.
I had one other thing I wanted to bring up. The other day, when we were talking about it, I was worried about everybody getting backlogged, because we're gonna be moving on this quickly, and we need to get the fire inspections done, and I had brought up the possibility of bringing in a part-time, fire, inspector, but Anne Marie talked to me about something that had been done in the past, and Bill is gonna come up and talk about that, a way that we can save money, get it done, and at a cost savings. I think Yvette's familiar with it too. So if it's okay, Bill, would you come up and talk about our discussion as to the fire inspector?
While Bill's coming up, it is in your resolution packet to hire Mike Harold. He was the part-time fire inspector before the pandemic hit us, so it'd be bringing him back. So,
Okay, well,
and he's-
this was something that, I mean, just because we're trying to save money and yet we need to do this, we're trying to figure out a
I
solution.
need to interrupt here for a second. If you, in public sessions, when you are addressing personnel, you should not address them by number. That should be in executive session. And I think we have an executive, we have an executive session. We
My
are
bad.
not permitted to mention individuals and personnel.
All right.
Until the
Bye-bye.
people,
Oh.
the individuals are
Okay,
hired.
understood.
I just want to correct that. We are going into executive session.
Okay.
So, Catherine, let's discuss this, and it is up on here for executive session.
Yeah, but this is not about a person, this is about a different way to do the hire. a
Yeah, but
different
the
way to-
person was mentioned.
Yeah, I mentioned the person by,
Yes.
accident by name.
And that, you bring all
My
that
bad.
up in as executive session.
Right.
With
Not
the
supposed to be
board.
mentioned in public.
Yes.
Anyway,
Bill, does this involve a person?
while Bill's coming up, just so the board is aware, we have been without another fire marshal for close to 3 months. We've been out without a fire marshal secretary since the beginning of January, since, I'll mention her name, Laura Teague passed away, unfortunately. So we've been saving money along the way, unfortunately, and not in a good way. But there has been a cost saving to the town, up to the state in that office.
So it's budgeted if the board moves forward with that? Fine. Great.
I don't believe this is an individual person, this is just a different way to look at it.
Okay, let's talk
Okay.
in the executive session. As far as the funding, you want to speak about
I
the
don't,
actual?
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an
budget?
executive session item.
We have to
So-
separate
so-
the person with the budget, I
Right,
think.
so
is
this
what we
does
have to do.
include positions,
Right,
okay?
okay, so it's fixed, okay, not a.
Right, so budgetarily, the plan would be to hire a part-timer and not cost any more than what we're paying right now. Okay, by simply having a part-timer do, have a flexed schedule that can help facilitate reducing some other costs, other payroll costs, and also getting some inspections done while they're doing that.
And when would this person, work?
It would be weekends.
On the
You're
weekend?
talking
Yes.
about the flex schedule?
Well, that person's schedule would be the weekends when other people have to be on recall or on standby.
Okay.
Okay, but we'd have someone actually getting work done on those weekends as opposed to being on standby in case something happens.
which obviously a lot of these events occur on weekends where they
Right.
would need to do the inspection.
And I think something like this was done in 2016, you said?
Well, I think what happened was in 2016, we had, because there was a retirement in that department, we had this special agreement to allow people to get paid on standby because they have to, they're on call and potentially can't leave the town and so on and so forth, and they were getting paid to do that. In this case, we're able to use that in order to fund a part-time position to get other inspections done at the same time and still having somebody available during those hours on the weekend.
Let me rephrase that. Fire Marshal Zidek will be doing the inspections, not the part-timer coming in on the weekends, correct? Okay.
So the issue is that the person that we were looking at to, who had been our intern, to bring them on part-time, will be a fire inspector. They do not have the credentials and the training as a fire marshal. Therefore, if they're working the weekends, they can do some things, but again, if there's a call out by the fire department, that requires a fire marshal, not a fire inspector. As well as we're still on call, you know, Monday through Friday, 24/7, as well as the weekend. The fire inspector that we would like to hire part-time will assist us during the week with inspections, as well as, since we do not have a clerical person at this time, I have been doing the clerical duties, which precludes me from going out and doing inspections. So without a clerical person, we're spending more time in the office doing clerical work because we need the information in order to do the inspections and so forth. So as it is right now, we are not nearly as efficient as we need to be, and with the addition of, you know, this outdoor seating with special events and so forth, we're just going to be falling farther and farther behind and not out there doing the fire safety, life safety inspections that we need to be doing for the town.
Is a fire inspector have the ability to do an inspection for this temporary outside sitting? Is it within their purview?
Yes, we will go over with them and what needs to get done, and I believe he will be able to do it, yes.
So we can take the feedback from everyone and have this discussion. I think Anne Marie had some other, I don't know, Anne Marie's not here, but she had some other ideas to add to it. So we'll, you know, we can discuss it as a group. We can discuss it again.
Sure.
Well, in light of being tight monetary, budget-wise, but we have saved money with the unfortunate loss of the clerical staff, that I think we should probably look at replacing that position.
Yep.
And because they are going to be inundated coming up with a lot of things and a lot of changes. So I think we need to get the staff back up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, the department right now, before Monday, we've been operating since January with a staff of 10 out of 14 budgeted positions. Unfortunately, that curtails our ability to do our job as efficiently as well as we'd like to, but it has saved the town money. So, and for example, when one planner retired after 30 years at a very high salary, we can, we're planning to replace that position with a position that's $50,000 less.
Sure.
So there is cost savings with the loss of these employees. We get to underfill them, but we would like to have the full staffing, you know, so we can do everything that we are expected to do.
Understood.
Yep, understood. We'll take feedback from everybody and figure it all out, and
Thank you.
Jeff,
we don't want
I
to short
just want to
anybody.
note that you had some support a few months ago when you were well behind.
Yep.
And you came to us and stated that you needed this, and we did
Yep.
give it to you, and it did clear the backlog, so thank you for that.
Yep.
We know now if we take on this initiative, including possibly expanding outside special events, that you're gonna be taxed, and you know, you'll have our support, at least my support, to move forward, and we should have the administrative person in place, because we are gonna have quite a few applications going to you, and we need to fast track these, and
I would just like to take this opportunity to also thank the people that worked during the town hall. The building was closed. All the ladies in the building department and our inspectors were working 5 days a week. I've heard that other towns shut down completely, and now
Yeah.
they're facing a backlog of applications. We're a little bit behind, but we're not entirely behind, so we're.
And I agree, I speak to other townships, and we're not in as bad shape.
So I'd really like to thank the employees and the ladies in the office. They did a really bang-up job during these difficult times.
Right, and we're gonna move forward with Main Street and with the temporary dining, so you're gonna be busy for a while, and I did see you almost every day.
Perfect.
So-
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for being here and keeping the building part, such a critical component of this crisis going endlessly for us.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, just real, on a quick note, on the special permits, Jody had to leave concerning tenting. There is a possibility of having tenting throughout certain locations that we spoke about. And the Suffolk Theater, they can utilize the back, they can have outside seating, they can do a combination of both, something to be worked out. Jody and Councilwoman Giglio and Councilwoman Kent are spearheading this project. The Peconic Riverfront is absolutely a great location to have benches outside, people can get their food, possibly a tent in one location in case it's hot or it's raining, or someone has kids. The Long Island Sports Park is an ideal location to have outside events. The East End Arts has some spacing in there, possibly put tables, and we talked about the train station. Everything could be interchanged. It's up to the town board. I'm gonna recommend that we waive those applications also. We waive the outside extended seating, and that we waive these. And these are initiatives on phase one. If anybody has any ideas and they wanna put them forward, or send them to the bid, or to the Chamber of Commerce, by all means, we're here and we're working behind the scenes to keep going and hopefully reach in 2 weeks, phase two.
You're talking about waiving the fees, not the applications,
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay.
And the tents are, you elaborate a little more on the tents, is that in the downtown area, or is that everywhere? Or?
Everywhere. And by the way, it applies to any restaurant. Initially, people thought it was only restaurants on Main Street, and I would love to see Dine on 25. Similar to, Live on 25, now it's Dine on 25. You have people going from the riverfront, you have kids, interactive, maybe have the showmobile there, have a movie, and we ought to start thinking outside the box, and we're going there.
I think that's what everybody's doing, I think.
Yep, everybody's in the same situation.
What we gotta do, we gotta get things up and going again.
Yep. Okay, so moving forward, second to last, TDR program in the future of farmland preservation.
Yeah, so I just, Councilwoman Giglio and I just wanted to put this on the agenda just quickly because we have a potential sale of a fallow farm over in Calverton in an industrial area. And I know personally I've been getting a lot of questions saying, hey, why didn't the town buy the development rights here and preserve that farm going forward? So I just wanted to kind of give a quick overview of development right purchases because I've been involved with this for over 20 years in many different ways. But the first thing that is absolutely vital to buying any development rights is making sure that you have a willing buyer and a willing seller. Without that, you can't buy anything, even if you have the money and even if they want the money. If both sides won't agree, it can't happen. In this case, like I said, this is an industrial zone. So my guess is that the owner, in order to maximize his profits, sought to develop the parcel as is his right to do so. So, like I said, it's been fallow for many years. The second thing is the funding stream. New York State, the EPF there, they have very little money.
EPF?
Yeah, Environmental Protection Fund.
Okay.
So they have very little money anyway, but their focus, let's say, is usually on the upstate properties anyway for farmland. because they can get more bang for their buck. When they come downstate, the parcels down here are so expensive, it doesn't make sense for them to spend their money that way. In Suffolk County, we have, for preservation, we have the 0.25% water fund. That's another one. We have no control over how the county uses that money. And in that case, they split their purchases between open space and farmland, so that all of that money's not going towards farmland, so they really have to prioritize. And their fund, their pot of water is diminishing too. Here in Riverhead, we have the CPF. It's been underfunded for a long, long time, and that's our only control to buy farmland in our town. We could pick the parcels that we want to protect. Unfortunately, we don't have the money to do that. So going forward, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows the TDR program absolutely has to be given credibility and viability so that we can, one, fund these purchases of development rights going forward, and also have our own priorities on which ones are most important to the town of Riverhead. So I just wanted to say that very quickly. I didn't want to take up a lot of time, but I think going forward, it's something we should continue to address so that we can protect the rural character of our town.
Can you just elaborate on the sending and receiving component?
Is that a new acquisition? That's
Where
what
we
I'm
are with that? I think we have
Yeah,
more.
we had a good committee of people putting ideas forward, and it was going very well. And that was part of the issue, was trying to find appropriate sending areas and appropriate receiving areas. When that gets balanced, that's when you can start really preserving farmland. One of the examples that I use all the time is, say you have a project down on Route 58 that wants to have a drive-through, and as of right, it's not part of their zoning. But if he made an application to buy TDRs, which would preserve farmland in the town in another area, he could get that extra density, or they could get that extra density to put the drive-through in. The taxpayers don't fund it, it's from private funds, it makes perfect sense. We have to find creative ways to start doing that. And that's all I'm gonna say for now, but I just wanted to address it because of, in light of the property next to Tractor Supply.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you know, Frank, I agree with you completely. You know, it's our beautiful farm area that makes us wanna live here.
Yeah.
And we need to protect that, and we need to protect our farms, because Riverhead has such a rich history in farming.
Yes.
So,
Let us not forget that this all came about because of the upzoning years back.
Yes.
Where we went and changed the zoning, not we, it wasn't myself, it
No,
was
of course.
many boards before me.
Right.
But they changed it and went to 2-acre zoning on the farmlands, and that theoretically, it cut the value of their property in half.
Which affected their lending ability
Absolutely.
and a lot of other
Absolutely.
things. But anyway.
So this is a way of
Right.
kind of making up for that.
Yeah,
that people
and I don't wanna
understand.
belabor it, but I think it's something
Right.
we should keep in our,
Mhm.
in our vision going forward.
Good.
and I'm always trying to get the other towns to do a regional approach on the CPF.
Oh, yeah.
But they-
Good luck.
I'll just keep asking. Well, we share waterways.
That's right.
Okay. Last but not least, annual stormwater sewage systems. Drew, our engineer.
Also known as watching paint dry.
Oh, God, I know, everybody was saying, why is that up?
Come on. that's
Drew,
not nice to do.
I want to congratulate you on the great job that you did with the Army Corps of Engineer, your presentation.
Thank
It was a very well professional. Yes,
There is
thank
not.
you.
There is not.
Okay.
You and Ken did a good job. And you won't get to you didn't get to do your school
This is
presentation
the
on
municipal
stormwater
stormwater
this year, right?
sewage system, MSW, which is a required report, I understand?
That's correct.
Okay. What was all yours, your last?
I'm sorry?
There's a reason why you're last. You're not everybody's
We
favorite
were
topic.
hoping he got called
Now
out
you're
in an
gonna hurt Drew's
emergency
feelings.
somewhere.
There's a lot of haters out there.
No, we don't hate you.
Look how organized he is.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Supervisor
Good
and
morning.
Town Council members. For the edification of our new council members, Madam Supervisor and Councilman Bayride, as the supervisor has alluded to, The town of Riverhead is required pursuant to our state permit to provide, present, and publish an annual stormwater report, of which is going to be addressed by Drew from the technical feature section. This is pursuant to Section 402 of the Federal Clean Water Act, as administered through the DEC, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. That permit requires that the town review, enforce, and implement 6 minimum control measures, of which they are named as follows: public education and outreach, public participation and involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site runoff control, post-construction runoff control, and pollution prevention as a good housekeeping matter. The report before you that Drew is going to provide illuminates those particular sections as required by the Speedies permit through the state. Drew, at this point, if there are any questions concerning the particular features of the stormwater system, Drew's going to be able to answer those from a technical aspect. But I do want to clarify that our stormwater system encompasses not only obviously our sewer operations, but every public street and public curb line in the town of Riverhead is part of our system. And we cannot technically operate that system, even passively, without compliance and adherence to our state permit. So I just wanted to edify that particular aspect as well regarding this particular report. It encompasses all of those areas. Drew? Yeah. Thank you so much. Any
Thank you.
questions, at least from the introduction section?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Each year, I develop this presentation. I develop it around making Tim happy.
You've failed miserably.
I've failed miserably.
You have.
So this year, I'd like to talk about East Creek. Specifically, opening East Creek for shell fishing. We were working with, we being the engineering office, was working with the Marine Science Division of the DEC out of East Setauket. They're investigating Wading River Creek because it's basically a hotbed of fecal coliform from the marsh that feeds it. And as I was discussing that with them, Matt Richards, who runs the program, asked me if I was interested in opening any shellfish beds that have been closed in the past. And I didn't have any off the top of my head. I knew several that shouldn't be open, but as far as viable options, I didn't know of any. So I spoke with Dave Lessard, and he said, how about East Creek? So we began negotiations with the DEC out of East Setauket, back and forth, exchanging information, and finally set up a training for myself and the Bay Constable and a couple of other people as backups. Training and sampling the 3 locations in East Creek so that we can establish a baseline. This year, we're supposed to sample from December 12th through the 26th of April. And our goal was 15 sampling events after a rainfall event of 0.1 inches or more. What we're supposed to do is collect 15 samples, then the DEC will take a look at those, and hopefully we'll have passed health standards in East Creek during that period. One of the caveats is there can't be any boats other than emergency boats within the marina. We only were able to collect 4 samples. The DEC assured us that they had other background samples that they could add to ours, so that hopefully when next December comes, we'll be opening up the marina for sampling. For shell fishing. What we plan to do is keep it to residential shell fishing, 100 clam limit, once a week. If it rains, this number hasn't been set in stone yet, but I believe it's going to be 0.3 inches. If it rains 0.3 inches, the East Creek will be closed to shell fishing for 7 days. If it doesn't rain 0.3 inches in any of those 7 days, then the shell fishing will be open again in East Creek. Each day during the period from December to April, our Bay Constable has to take a rain gauge reading, rain gauge that's set up at East Creek, and basically report that to the DEC, and also he's got to notify or put a notification on Channel 22. And that way the people who want to shellfish that morning can call up by 7:30, and the Bay Constable will have left a message whether or not the shellfishing area is open or not. At this point, we're just waiting for, now that we've got our 4 samples in, we're waiting for the DEC to get back on their feet and start discussing this again. And hopefully, we'll be open for business in December. Any questions?
Are you gonna have some information on your website on this?
Not at this point, because we're still in the negotiating stage. We haven't finalized any numbers. And when we're all done, there's gonna be an actual plan for this that we develop with the DEC.
Okay.
Every shellfishing area has it, and it's not complicated. It's 15 to 20 pages, and we have to abide by it.
Okay. The purpose of asking that question is, I don't think the Bay Constable will be calling people at 7:30 in the morning to say you can go clamming.
No,
So, you can post it on the website and say,
Channel
hey, go on.
22.
Channel
He's gonna
22?
post it on Channel 22, yes.
Okay.
And the environmental
You get a
impacts
phone call and you
of
don't
the
fit.
shell fishing is really positive. I mean, they're filter fishers, and they filter the water naturally.
So the last time East Creek was seeded was about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was seeded regularly before that. So Dave Lassard believes that it's probably full of clams, but it's probably full of chowders and cherry stones.
Right.
So we're gonna do a survey of the creek hopefully before we get in touch with the DEC again, and each person will take a section and just figure out how many clams there are in the grades. So that way we'll be able to better define how many people can come in and how often and what their
Great
take
idea.
is.
Is there some type of permitting that we're gonna do, or so you don't have an influx of people on a great day and the perfect tide and?
Like I said, right now it's gonna be once a week, 100 clam limit, residential only. So that should really restrict any, quick diminishing of the shell fishing area. Centerport did the same thing a couple of years back, and they were cleaned out in 3 weeks because they had absolutely no restrictions, and we're not gonna do that.
Good.
Good.
Sounds good.
Is that it?
That's it? That's your whole thing?
That's, Tim?
That wasn't that bad.
I'm sure you have my permission to leave.
Thank you very much.
That wasn't that bad.
No, that was interesting, actually, I gotta say.
Actually,
That
yeah.
was,
Now I want some clams.
that was your best one you've done, I have to say.
Send them a copy of that. Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving forward, to wrap up these, discussion items. Devin, can you please read the resolutions?
Okay. Number 1, authorizes notice to bidders, installation of groundwater monitoring wells, capital project number 4, Riverhead Water District, project number RDWD 1804. Number 2, agrees to opt in to implementation of an e-filing for grievance and authorizes the supervisor executing a memorandum of understanding between the town of Riverhead and taxpayer representatives. Number 3, Town of Riverhead accepts immediate termination of lease and deferral of outstanding license fees for Kitty Fit. Number 4, Town of Riverhead defers outstanding license fees for February and March of 2020 and waives payment of fees from April 2020 to reopening of Day Haven. Number 5, changes the status of part-time police officers. Number 6, extends bid contract for corrosion control chemical PO4 for the Town of Riverhead. Number 7, pays bills. Number 8, extends contract for well and pump emergency services for the Riverhead Water District. Number 9, authorizes notice to bidders, installation of water mains and appurtenances, GenDOT Retirement Community, Middle Road, Riverhead Water District Project Number RDWD 1051. Number 10, authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with Family Service League regarding the Employee Assistance Program. Number 11, accepts the resignation of a minibus driver. Number 12, ratifies the appointment of a senior building inspector. Number 13, amends resolution number 2020-215. Number 14, authorizes amendment number 3 of agreement with U.S. Department of the Interior U.S. Geological Survey. Number 15, terminates LOA of part-time police officers. Number 16, ratifies the reinstatement of an employee. Number 17, 4285 Middle Country Road lateral water main extension, number 82051. Number 18, authorizes the execution of contract with Seed Clam Administrator. Number 19, authorizes the supervisor to execute a license agreement with Arrows Cultured Oyster Company to allow the installation of floating upweller systems, FLUPSI, in East Creek. Number 20, appoints a part-time fire prevention inspector. Number 21, authorizes the supervisor execution of certification and point of contact information sheet with the Department of Navy for loaned aircraft. Number 22, reclassifies action and grants approval of the special permit application known as 1535 Route 58 LLC on a parcel located at 1535 Old Country Road, Riverhead, New York, also identified as Suffolk County Tax Map Number 600-101-2-12.6. Number 23, authorizes Lawrence Levi, DBA Onsite Productions, to provide additional cablecast production services non-pro-tunc.
Hold on, can someone just explain number 21 to me? That's actually sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I can.
Looks like we're getting to aircraft?
No, it's just,
Oh, all right.
the fighter jets over at, yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Otherwise, maybe they'll take their jets back, I don't know. Okay.
No, I don't know. We want their jets.
Right. Number 24, authorizes town clerk to publish and post notice to consider a local law to amend Chapter 301 entitled Zoning and Land Development of the Riverhead Town Code, helicopter seaplanes and amphibious aircraft prohibited. Number 25, ULC Robotics Insurance License Agreement Budget Adjustment. Number 26, Launcher Inc. License Agreement Budget Adjustment. Number 27, ratifies the appointment of seasonal beach personnel to the Recreation Department. And number 28, extends bid award for removal and disposal of sludge cake and grit screen waste.
That sounds exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin.
Okay, moving forward, can I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the following? Matters surrounding the hiring of an employee, matters surrounding the possible LOA of an employee. Legal, discussion with Dave Lazar Esquire surrounding pending sale of real property. Discussion surrounding possible acquisition of real property. A contractual, matter surrounding an MOU regarding a grievance. Can I get a first and a second to go into executive session?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?